Kilmaurs is a village in East Ayrshire, the old district of Cunningham, pronounced in Scots Cunningham. Up until the 19th century, it was a Burgh of Barony and was very much in charge of its own internal affairs. The original settlement was known as Cunningham and was probably centred around the Kirkton, that is where St Maaks Glencairn Church is located. However, in 1527, the third Earl of Glencairn, Cuthbert Cunningham, created a Burgh of Barony, basically giving very much independence to those who lived there. He gave a certain amount of land, and this was divided up amongst 40 people, known as tenementers. The Laupin-on stone, that is the horse-mounting block, may be one of Kilmaurs' oldest features, because it may also have been a leper's stone. That is, sour wine or vinegar was placed in the bowl, and money was left there for the lepers to take. This isn't that unusual if you bear in mind that down at Prestwick there was King Case, that is, a lepers' hospital that was established by King Robert the Bruce, who himself is thought to have been a leper. Passing over control to local people who elected a Praeses, that is the equivalent of provost, and bailies to run the barony. This was because they'd had their major power base now at Finlaston down by the Clyde, although they still had two castles in the Kilmaurs area, one being at the old place and the other being up by Jougs Thorn. The Tolbooth or council house is locally known as the Jougs. This name is derived from the manacles, that is a form of metal hoop that was placed round the neck. This was a punishment that could be given by the baronial court. The original 16th century Tolbooth lay across the road from the Jougs. This had a prison cell and also a room where the bailies could carry out their tasks. In a nearby house also lived the hangman, because at one point the baronial court had the right of capital punishment. The Jougs was built sometime in the early 18th century, and the steeple was added round about 1800 with the impressive steps, also a new entrance. The building was changed internally. Beneath was a prison cell and also a fire station. In the mid-19th century, a lightning strike knocked about 12 feet of masonry off the steeple. The repairs practically bankrupted the borough. The present Market or Market Cross was probably the site of the old cattle market where Robert Burns famously attended. Later became a butter market. Said the cross itself was converted at these times to a sort of weighing scales, a piece of wood placed across and a balance. Certainly there are records that the top of the cross had to be repaired. If you walk down what is sometimes known as Bidgie Lane, this cuts through what was the back gardens of the bailies' properties. You come to the Carmel. The Maaks Well used to pour its water into the Carmel here. It's said that one time the laird, the Cunningham laird, tried to prevent the locals from using the water, and it dried up. He spoke to the priest, and the priest said that if he gave them right of access, the water would start to flow, and indeed it did. The ruins of Kilmaurs Castle stand on the hill. Next to it stands the mid-17th century laird's house, which was built by William Cunningham, Earl of Glencairn and Chancellor of Scotland. The coat of arms come from a nearby demolished house. The walk in the light comes from the old town end manse. Apparently the minister, who was a covenanter, was so hospitable to the soldiers who came to turn him out that they found themselves unable to do so. The Western Tavern used to be a manse. It was occupied by famous local minister David Smeaton. He was the first minister of the Secession Church, or the Anti-Burgher Church. This was created after the Great Disruption, where a large number of churches left the Church of Scotland over doctrinal differences. If you're interested in learning more about Kilmaurs Place and about St Maaks Glencairn Church on the Glencairn Isle, you'll find that there are videos on YouTube, and also articles on Wikipedia.